Chapter 2. Evan had low expectations for the colonists, but they still managed to disappoint. "But won't they send help when we don't check in?" someone called out after Anya finished explaining her plan to turn the wreckage into a perimeter fence. "Any help is potentially months away," Anya explained, circling back to the question for the third time. "Think about how long it took us to get here. It's no faster for them. We planned on making this place home, and that hasn't changed." "Who put you in charge anyway?" a man called out. Anya stood her ground. "The official mission commanders are either dead or landed elsewhere. I was on the team that established the colonization profile for this planet. That means of those of us here, I know more about it than anyone else. If you'd rather have someone in charge who can't tell you what plants will kill you and what won't, go for it." The protester fell silent, and no one else raised an objection. "Good," Anya continued. "Now it's mid-morning, so the good news is that we have most of the day to get organized. We need to go through all the pods to pull out emergency rations, medkits, and anything else that may be useful. Let's delegate team leads for each task." After a needlessly contentious discussion, 4 delegates were selected by the group of 47 survivors. One was responsible for overseeing the collection and inventory of food. Another was assigned to collect and catalog other useful materials, such as medical supplies and personal items scavenged from the wreckage. A third was tasked with securing the perimeter of the crash site. The remaining delegate would tend to the injured and coordinate shelter. While the delegates worked out the members of their team, Anya pulled Evan aside. "Up for a hike?" she asked. "I thought you'd never ask." "Peter over there," she nodded toward a dark-skinned, middle-aged man, "seems to have leadership experience and can keep an eye on things here. I figure the 2 of us are best equipped to get up to high ground and see what we're up against." "Works for me." Evan went through the preliminary collection of supplies to grab an empty bag, which he filled with a couple of water bottles, 2 packs of emergency rations, a medkit, and some scrap cables that could be used as rope in a pinch. As prepared as they were going to get under the circumstances, Evan and Anya headed up the hill. The hike started out easily enough, with a shallow incline and knee-high grass. It had been years since Evan had spent any meaningful amount of time on a planet. Though the gravity simulated on ships was close to that of this world, everything from the strange scents in the air to the sensation of sun on his back reminded him that he was a spacefarer, not a colonist. He was never supposed to be here, and now it may be the last place he'd ever see. "We got lucky, all things considered," Anya said, breaking the silence. "How so?" "Aside from being alive, we didn't land in the middle of a forest. Getting impaled by a branch would be a nasty way to go. We also could have lost a lot more pods on those rocks." "True. Where did you serve? Any planetary assignments?" "Not really." She glanced over at him. "You know, talking about yourself isn't a crime." "It could be in my world." Anya raised an eyebrow. "And what world was that?" He chuckled. "I see what you did there." Us scientist types ask a lot of questions. Can't help it. Evan had spent so many years hiding his true self that evasion was his default. It'd take time to learn another way. "I spent some time working a job where asking questions was a quick way to get yourself killed." "What were you doing?" "Probably best if I don't talk about it." She nodded slowly. "So, military and then had plans to start over on a new colony to reinvent yourself?" Evan let out a long breath. "A lot happened in between, but coming here was never part of my plans. How that disaster precipitated is a story for another time. We have plenty now. I'll need a drink or 2 in me before diving into that mess." "Fine, suit yourself." "What about you?" he asked. "How'd you find yourself running surveys for new settlements?" She laughed. "Funny about that. I wasn't supposed to be here either." "No kidding? What are the odds, right?" She threw her arms wide. "Guess I was too good at my job and they decided they needed a specialist for the boots-on-the-ground colonization work. That's what I get for actually traveling rather than strictly being a desk jockey like most of my coworkers." "But hey, Never would have gotten that field medic experience. She turned solemn. That guy's not going to make it through the night. Better than suffering. I'm most concerned about the two people with broken legs. Not fatal, but also unable to travel. Especially not this route. Anya looked ahead. The terrain was becoming steeper. Expansive meadow grasses were now transitioning to patches of rock as they neared the cliffs. Their conversation died out as the travel got more strenuous. The combination of a steeper angle and less stable ground made Evan work for each step. A fall here would mean a long tumble down the hillside, so he was deliberate with his footing. The further up they went, the more treacherous the scree terrain became. The incline was soon steep enough that he needed to use his hands to pull himself up. Only a few meters ahead, the cliff face towered above. Anya scowled at the rock wall. This is a lot bigger than it looked in the distance. Evan looked behind them at the crash site of the surviving colonists. They could return to the group, but hope would fade the moment others realized they were trapped, and there was no hope. They had to make it up the wall to the plateau. If they didn't, they may as well give up on any future right now. Wordlessly, Evan's eyes met Anya's, and she nodded with understanding. They'd have to climb, no matter the risk. I'll go first, Anya stated. Are you sure? I can scout ahead, Evan offered. I'm lighter. Better if I'm up top. He couldn't argue with that. Firstly, he may have a chance of catching her if she fell, but the same wouldn't work in reverse. And secondly, if he wasn't able to catch her, at least there'd be less chance of her knocking him off the wall. With that in mind, he gave her a 2-body-length lead before beginning his climb. Despite the grand scale of the rock wall, it had plenty of cracks and ledges to make it easy to find secure hand and footholds. The initial 7 meters were a relatively easy climb, but then Anya reached a more sheer section. As she climbed up, several chunks of stone she'd used as grip points broke free. Evan pressed himself against the rock face to avoid being struck as they fell. Sorry, she called down to him. It's brittle through here. She climbed up another 2 meters. Getting better again. There's a big ledge up here. With a few more moves, she pulled herself over the lip. You good? He asked. Yeah, this is a big enough spot for both of us to rest. Now, he just had to get up there. The newly broken sections would make his climb more difficult. I'm on my way, Evan said to encourage himself forward. He was up high enough now that his head swam when he looked down, so getting to a secure resting place sounded delightful. He carefully found grip points to work toward the ledge. Nearly to the destination, he stretched up, his fingers barely brushing the stone ledge. The only way to grab it fully was to jump. He made the leap. As his feet pressed down with more force for the move, the rock underfoot gave way. There was just enough spring from the jump to propel him upward, and he hooked the ledge. Desperate now, he clung on and managed to swing up his other arm to get a better hold. He hauled himself up, using his feet where he could get traction on the wall. Once over the lip, he took a moment to catch his breath. I really need to get in better shape. Anya stood at the back of the natural platform, looking down at him with hands on her hips. What took you so long? She asked jokingly. You busted out all the good handholds, thank you. Her smug demeanor faded. Oh, sorry about that. He took another deep breath and got to his feet. All good, but we're going to need to find a different route down. I think it might actually be possible to go through the forest. She pointed to the trees running along the far side of the crash site. From the ground, it had looked like the forest terminated at the same rock face they were now scaling. However, from the higher vantage point, it was now clear that a band of trees continued all the way up to the plateau, and the ground was more gradually sloped, heading up to that level. Good eye, Evan told Anya. We might even be able to get injured people up that way. We can scope it out on the way back. Anya smiled. We may have a chance yet. Come on, we're almost to the top. She took hold of the rock behind her and continued the ascent. Unlike the section they'd just traversed, the next portion was distinctly sloped, so it was closer to crawling than climbing. In short order, they descended the final 50 meters and were coming up on level ground. The plateau wasn't nearly as flat as Evan had anticipated. Though there was a sizable wide open and level area, there were also additional hills. A ridge ran perpendicular to the valley where they'd crashed, and its base was about a kilometer from their present location. "We should get up there," Evan said. "If we can see over the other side, we'll have a much better idea about what we're dealing with." Agreed. They took a brisk pace up the hill, eager to reach the crest and see what was on the other side. Near the top, Evan got his first unobstructed view of their surroundings. Below, the landing pods were scattered around the hillside. However, they weren't confined to the meadow where Evans had touched down. Some were scattered even further down the hill, and others beyond the tree line. The white pods stood out as bright dots against the green landscape, but he couldn't make out the smaller forms of people from that distance. "All right, so we might have more numbers than we thought," Anya said. "We can send messengers to them if they haven't already connected with our group by the time we're back." He finished hiking the remaining distance to the crest of the ridge. Getting his first look at the other side, his heart sank. A column of smoke was rising in the distance, far too large to be from landing pods. It could only be one thing. Anya also caught sight of the smoke. "What's that?" "Our military escort,"